Professor Vyne ushered Penelope, Red, and Norbert and the cat into the empty classroom. Professor Nickel stood behind her with a look of confusion. Hovering orbs of light were suspended over 3 stations. Neatly laid out on each station was a row of quills, pots of ink, and stacks of parchment paper. For the destruction the 3 of you caused for our school's history, we will recopy each of the books, tomes, and notes you so carelessly destroyed. Luckily, the archivist made audio orbs of each text, so you will listen to the orb and transcribe them as accurately as possible. Do I make myself clear? Vyne did not wait for an answer and slammed the classroom door. The door was closed and she wove a spell over the door handle, locking it into place. A little extreme, don't you think? Professor Nickel asked. Hardly. The students should already have had transcribing in their curriculums, though I suspect Mr. Soot will have forgotten. But the other 2 ladies seemed far more competent. She started to walk at a quick pace. Professor Nickel trotted after her. I didn't mean the transcribing. I meant locking the door. You don't trust them enough to the assignment? Vyne kept staring ahead. I locked the door so it wouldn't be opened from the outside. The students claim to be haunted by a ghost. If they see it tonight, then I fear their suspicions are correct, as nothing physical can get through that door. The 2 professors walked a long time in silence, past the library and into the stale and unlit corridors of the crypt. Both summoned light orbs. Nickel broke the silence as they began to descend into the dark halls of the crypts. His voice tingled with nerves. Professor Vyne? Yes, Professor Nickel. We're not looking for a ghost, are we? No, I suspect we are not. The students have a wild imagination, but I've investigated their claims. I think something is down here that shouldn't be. I have my suspicions, but I'm not 100% sure. Professor Nickel puffed himself up. Is that what I think I'm hearing? The great Professor Vyne needs some help. In all my years, I don't think you've asked anyone for help. So you think it has to do with the undead arts? And that's why you asked me to join you tonight? I might be able to teach you something for once, huh? Professor Vyne picked up a pace. No, Professor Nickel. I'm afraid I know more about necromancy than you, and I am far less squeamish about it. But I do need your help. For you see, Mr. Soot said an altered wolf attacked him. To him, I told him not to worry about it and dismissed his claim, but I secretly followed up on it anyway. I did find a body of a wolf where he told me it would be, and the wolf seemed to be enhanced by some sort of spell. Professor Nickel was silent. Vyne continued. The students claim a monster in chains has attacked them. I found no monster, but I did find this torn piece of burial cloth caught on a torch stand down here. Vyne handed him the cloth. Nickel examined it. This is indeed a burial cloth, an old one at that. But Vyne, I'm confused. You seem to have most of these pieces already. Why do you need me? I have a few suspicions about these creatures, and I'm hoping you can confirm them for me. It took just a moment, but Professor Nickel hung his head once he realized what she wanted him to confirm. You think I'm to blame for it? Vyne nodded. Of course. How could I be so stupid? I was so eager to help you. Actually, work with the great Professor Vyne. Instead, I'm just a suspect to you. So let me get this. If we don't find this creature or any additional clues, then I'm suspect number 1, correct? Vyne nodded. While the students were trying their best to follow the recordings, Grimwick was talking loudly and drew up his theory on the chalkboard. He covered the board with images of clues, suspects, and linked them all together in a series of arrows, jagged lines, and circles. All the arrows pointed to one suspect, and he circled it 100 times. Fine! It all points to her. She did it! Now she's probably just going to murder that skittish necromancer. They call it the undead arts now, Penelope corrected. That's stupid. They just slap art at the end of anything to make it fancy, Grimwick replied. I think the word art is a perfect juxtaposition of the word itself, Red said, staring at the ceiling. That didn't even make sense. Penelope replied, Yeah, I agree with pigtails here. What kind of candy wrapper did you get that from? Grimwick spat. Can you all please stop? Norbert yelled. It's already hard enough trying to listen to this thing, and with all of you talking, it's impossible. I can't get it. How do you reverse this stupid thing? All 3 of them looked at him confused. Grimwick was mad. Who cares about the stupid books? At this point, Vyne should be in the crypt. Killed off Professor Squeamish. This is our chance. We need to make a run for it. No, Penelope said, walking over to Norwood Station. We don't have to run. Professors can make all the threats they want, but they can't harm any students. They swore an oath and are bound by magic to it. Vyne can be as scary and as mean as she wants, but she can't hurt us. And Norbert, we did this in class, remember? It's called a transcribing spell. She grabbed Norbert's quill and moved all his wrinkled and ink-covered papers, waved a spell, and passed the feather through the orb and dipped it into the tip of the inkwell, and then the pen began to write by itself. When the quill got to the bottom of the page, the paper glided off, allowing the quill to write on the paper underneath. Norbert was amazed. Wow, you're so smart, Penelope. Hey, I did it too, Red said, pointing at her own quill, which seemed to be just writing just fine, but ink was being splattered everywhere. I don't think we're smart. You're just dumb, she added. Grimwick laughed. Ha, see? Mop Hair gets it. That's what we've been trying to tell him. He's so dumb that we're gonna get expelled. Hey, it's not me that I'm dumb. Anyway, Grimwick said louder. We gotta get going. With Vyne being the one behind us, I don't think we'll be as surprised at the results of her trip are. Let's go, boy. I'm not going, Norbert piped up. Oh, yes you are, Grimwick hissed. You said you'd help me finish this semester, and all you've gotten to me is more trouble. We're staying. No, we need to leave now. Grimwick pointed towards the door and began to make a motion towards it. But just then the doorknob turned and shook aggressively. Grimwick stepped back, and all the students huddled together as someone or something was trying to get in. Professor Vyne and Professor Nickel were now very deep in the labyrinth of the crypt. They had not seen anything out of place or any clues. Professor Nickel was still upset. That makes so much sense. Of course, I'm a suspect. You're unbelievable, Vyne. Do you know what the other faculty think about you? I don't care, Vyne said, trying to quell Nickel's ramblings. They say you're the worst. Rude to students, rude to faculty, and all you care about is yourself. Vyne stopped. I do not care what other professors nor anyone else think of me. I make no apologies for looking after myself. Self-reliance isn't a bad flaw. Perhaps you could use some more of it. And if my words hurt, then so be it. I only speak in truths. And if you feel my suspicions about you are out of line, then prove me wrong. Strengthen your nerve, Professor Nickel. This night is still young. Professor Nickel said nothing and just kept walking past. But then he saw a slither of movement. Look, what is that? Vyne followed his gaze. It was an animated corpse, glowing eyes, stringing floating hair, and a grin of rotten teeth. It seemed to be a woman in tattered burial shrouds and chains. It was cast in a soft glow. It was no ghost, not a zombie either. Perhaps a wraith, but it looked too solid. What is that? Nickel asked. We'd better catch it, Vyne said, and the two began to chase it down the winding hallways. The creature was cackling in laughter. It always seemed to be just at the end of the hallway at every turn, like it was leading them somewhere out of reach, but Vyne was determined to catch it. When it seemed like they were almost closing in on the creature, the tunnel opened up, revealing the calm night of the shoreline. They were now outside at one of the docks to the island. The creature led us out here, Vyne said, looking around. They were at the shoreline of the island. There was no sign of the creature now. Yeah, Nickel said, scratching his head. Why do you think it would take us to the southernmost tip of the island? Then a thought flashed through their minds like a crack of lightning. The school spires were faint off into the distance now. In unison, they both looked at each other and turned, and they said, it was leading us away from the students. Professor Vyne and Professor Nickel dare not fall for any of the other tricks inside of the crypt. They ran as fast as they could through the woods towards the school, into the main building, up the grand staircases, and down the hallways to the rooms where they left the students. When they reached the classroom, the door hung ajar. No, 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 Professor Nickel moaned. Vyne flung the door open and analyzed the room. Nothing seemed far too out of place. The chalkboard had crude writings on it at the height of the cat. No struggle seemed to have occurred. The only hint of a scuffle was piles of paper had been scattered across the floor, and scratch marks were across some of the desks. Vyne surveyed it all. Well, at least the cat fought back a little bit. But why didn't the rest? Vyne continued to look around. It was Professor Nickel who found something and grabbed it off the floor. It was a muffin with a bite taken out of it. He smelled it, faint, but it contained a sleeping agent. I think they were tricked. And so were we. Vyne grabbed the muffin and crushed the pastry in her hand.